This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
Podcastini Greeny. I'm getting way too many of those Italian brain rot memes.
I don't think I've seen any of them.
Are you serious?
Like...
Oh, God. Anyone who knows.
And what's the one for Leo? Journalisti?
Journalisti Puglisi.
Wonderful. Wonderful content. Hello, patrons. Thanks for supporting our show. This is Serious Danger, a podcast about green politics in Australia. It's not an official Greens Party podcast. You know this. It's produced by Michael the Griffin. We love you. We are bringing you our conversation with one of the few good Australian journalists from 6 News Australia, the one and only Leo Puglisi. The boy journalist. He's joining us on the show. Thank you.
It's very exciting. For those who don't, there may be people listening who don't know. So just quickly, what is 6 News? And then we will jump into the interview.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, yes, it's a news outlet, 6 News Australia. Leo started it when he was just 11 years old. I think it was originally HMV, Hawthorne, Melbourne. It was like the original call sign, was it? Turned into 6 News. And it's a bunch of child journalists who do a fantastic job of news gathering, fact checking, of doing interviews, and regularly put the mainstream Australian media to shame because they're good and not bad. And it's young people doing cool stuff.
Yeah. They break news, they fact check. They're very good. It's very good.
They're also the subject of various conspiracy theories. I believe Leo is a puppet of the Liberal Party, the Communist Party, and the Greens as well. So it's great to get all those together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of the above. Yes, correct.
We should say this is going to be our last episode of any kind. That is, it's a Patreon episode, obviously. Last one before actual election day. We will be joining you on May the 4th. Oh, wow. I didn't realize actual election results day.
May the 4th be happy, please. May the 4th be green.
May the 4th be green. We'll be there. It'll be a little bit delayed, of course. We'll record on the Sunday morning going through all the results of Australian Votes 2025. We are thinking of people who listen to this show who are working their absolute guts out in these last 2 weeks, especially as people are voting, of all the volunteers, the MPs, the candidates, people like you, Emerald Moon, who are pouring everything you've got into getting as many Greens votes as possible. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Don't forget to vote.
Oh, yeah.
Classic mistake when you're on the booth all day. Don't forget to vote right now. If you're listening to this and you haven't voted, vote Greens.
Remember to vote. Oh, yes, vote Greens. That's very crucial too. If you're not going to vote Green, don't worry about it. It's fine.
If you're not, it's okay. Voting's not that important. It doesn't really make a difference anyway. Anyway, shall we do it?
Let's chat to Leah. Sorry about that, Leah. Apologise.
No stress. I've done worse. Trust me,
dude. You've got a lapel microphone. you're putting us all to fucking shame.
Yeah, but you should see around this. I mean, even with this green screen, it's piles of dog toys over there. It looks. There's a reason I didn't when the ABC 7:30 came. We kind of like taped off sections. Like you can't film there. You can't film there.
Caution, do not
keep
cross.
The image up.
Okay, and for this interview, are you happy for there not to be anything in the green screen background, or are you going to insert something in there, like some hardcore?
I didn't realise you can on bloody Riverside. That's why I'd move this setup. Okay. So, look, it's an appropriate background. Works for me.
It's behind the scenes. I think it's good. It's like, this
green,
is without
Emerald.
the fancy.
He's saying it's green.
And it is green.
If I turn, I won't dare turn the Mac because I'll watch it unplug if I do. There's a wall of, it was a great gift. It was like every 20th century prime minister, and they're just ominous portraits that hang over this room. And that works as well.
Sounds horrible. Sounds really, really bad.
That's awesome.
It works.
Let's start this interview. I mean, we're going to keep all this. That's all gold. And who else could we possibly be talking to than the man behind 6 News Australia, Leo Puglisi, the boy journalist who's now a young man journalist, 17 years old, in year 12, running one of the finest media outlets in the entire country. Welcome to Serious Danger, mate.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
First question, who are you voting for this election? Tell the people.
I wish I could vote. But certain dates with my parents didn't work out, and so I get born in November. And so I got to wait. I got to wait until Victoria 2026. Or actually, John Pesutto might quit, and so we could get a late by-election, and I could vote
by-election. That'd be fun.
That'd be good.
Wouldn't mind that. For non-partisan reasons, I just like by-elections.
Well, you just love democracy. Do you think we should lower the voting age? I mean, you're 17 yourself. You're engaging with young people all the time who are under the legal voting age. You're engaged with politics heavily. You love it. Do you think that young people could handle with the democratic responsibility of voting if we lowered it down?
I think they could. I mean, look, I'm not actually like that strongly fussed on it. Like, I think 18's perfectly fine, especially when we see some of the other countries, and certainly you have the occasional idiot take it. It's 1,000 likes. It's like it's got to be limited 35 homeowner only, and it's like
really good. Yeah.
Look, I think 18's fine. I think 16 isn't unreasonable. I'd be interested to trial it at some council election or something and just see what happens. Would be an interesting start. But, I reckon we're ready. I mean, around my high school, which I won't dox myself, but I know around there, there's always polling places. And I think most people I'm talking to are fairly engaged. I hear a lot of party names being mentioned by people I didn't expect to be talking about politics, which is always good, assuming, as you would want, they're voting for the right people. But, I think they are ready at the age of 16, but, 18's fine with me.
Are you the dude in high school whenever anything comes up, people go, okay, Leo, what's the fucking deal here? Tell us all the news stats and fact check everything.
And you say you got to subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty well. Yeah, you're right. I think I just say I had a mate ask me, who should I vote for this election? I'm like, well, you can get informed. Just watch 6 News, and you've got some interviews coming out, and you can get informed. And we've spoken to the Prime Minister. We might have Adam Bant on soon, and we're like, just follow that. But yeah, I think just about everyone asked. And look, that's not a new thing, right? I think it was would have been 2021, where it was like maybe number 3 or number 4 of the Victorian lockdowns. I'm getting teachers asking me if that announced it yet, knowing full well that I'm just watching Twitter in the back of class, technically sort of in breach of some rule. But if it works, it works. And I think the people need to hear that kind of voice.
So true.
Teachers asking, hey, Puglisi, what's going on with the latest lockdown? Tell us. What's your homework? Yeah, God.
When you were, 13? Yeah. Because you started this thing, you started 6 News when you were 11?
11, yeah. So it was March 2019. So it's our 6th year last month. And, I would have been 13 in 2021. I mean, look, even I'm remembering, sitting at home in a maths class, and I've got one screen, muted, just sitting in the background at some maths lesson, and the other we're streaming the Gladys Berejiklian resignation, and so that's kind of what 2020 and 2021 was for me. And I mean, it's somewhat changed since then, but it's still basically the monitoring in the back of class. Well, of course, being heavily focused
engaged
on
with your
schoolwork.
studies.
Yeah. You were getting scoops during the Melbourne lockdown. 6 News had one of the scoops on one of the was it the 4th time Melbourne went back into lockdown? It was 6 News ahead of the curve, breaking that story.
Yeah, it was the second. It was when we went into stage 4, and the amount of comments it's like. And this was again, I was 12. So look, I can understand the doubting, but it was big, and I remember covering it, and we were, 50-50 on this source, but 12-year-old me didn't have a full ethics guideline yet, so we just put it out there, and it was right. And I think that was probably the first big scoop. The other one before that kind of got some attention, like 3AW and the like, was that my primary school's bell tower was removed, and we filmed it, and that was a little nice one. But I think the lockdown was just a tad bit more important.
Slightly.
A little bit bigger.
What was your journalistic ethics like when you were 12 years old, Emerald? What were you doing? How many scoops did you get?
I do not know, but it's funny. I share, like, even though I was not as politically engaged, I didn't really understand politics when I was little, but I relate to that kind of, just that vibe of being a little nerd that wants to do some funny shit. No, maybe I don't know if that's how you like to be characterized, but I remember my friends.
It's fair. It
I
applies.
that wants to do funny shit. That was me anyway. We would take notices that would go home for the parents, and my friend would scan them in and Photoshop them and then redistribute them with like new text, making fun of, the teachers getting too titillated by the girls wearing short shorts at the assembly. And that would then get distributed around the school with the school logo on it. Not that, so I guess the answer is we were doing fake news. That was that was what I was doing.
I mean, look, like I think it was so 2019. So when I was still in year 6 and doing it, I mean, you can, and look, this stuff is like still online for better or worse, but half the headlines are something like, Hawthorn West Primary School brings back science for term 3. This is the big one. And look, the school was happy to show it during lunch breaks or something in some classes for better or worse, because there was a scandal at the school later in the year, which we didn't really touch, but that's past it now. And I public, by the way, like just look up Hawthorn West 2019. You can see it.
Okay.
But look at the end of the day, I think. That's where it's at, and there's never been so much. We've never gotten the high school news channel. It's not like, I think you see the American high school TV kids shows that always have the school news on the TV, and we're not at that stage yet. But we're still able to do it at home.
I mean, look, okay, we have our fun. It's an adorable little story at the start, but you have since built this thing into what is a really impressive media outlet. As you say, you've been going for 6 years. You're interviewing Senate candidates. You're interviewing the Prime Minister. Famously, in 2022, you had a pretty sticky interview with Scott Morrison, and of course, you've interviewed Anthony Albanese this time around. So there's like the joke is only goes so far. It gets to a point where you're just saying, no, you're just doing good journalism and reporting on what's happening in the news because you really care about it. Can you give us a quick sense of like how big is 6 News? How many people you got working for you? What's the operation like? How do you guys make money? Give us just a brief overview of like the 6 News operation.
Yeah, so there's about 10 of us, and it kind of comes in and out because obviously, as you can imagine, at this age, a lot of people are doing work experience and freelance and just working around their own high school study schedules, which, fair enough. And then we've got tens of thousands on Twitter. I want to say it's about 30. I'm just going to say it's 40 and kind of up it there. Just no one's fact checking. So let's say it's 40 on Twitter. It's about 15, let's say 20 on Facebook. 20 odd, 10K, 20 on Instagram. Blue Sky is good for us because like no one else touches that. So we just kind of go in there and it works. And then YouTube is just under 40K, which is good. And then of course, without being all ego, my personal has quite a nice following as well on Twitter. But I in terms of money, and look, I think YouTube is just shithouse at trying to get actual money in. Like you can't monetize half of what we do, and what we do gets like pennies. Like we're talking 5 cents for 5,000 views or something like that. The only video I think we've ever made a profit on is the Fatima Payment Skibbity Senator one. But other than that, I want to say like 90 to 95% is just Patreon donations. So like $4 a month, patreon.com/6newsau.
Good plug. Very good. And so do you guys have a policy when it comes to the age of people that you want to employ at 6 News? Do you not want to employ anyone over 18, and how do you evaluate the experience and the skills of people who say they want to come and work for you?
Yeah, as you can kind of imagine, it's evolved as I've aged in real time, right? And so I think when I was about 12, the first person we had on, his name's Jack Harney, now works for Channel 9 and does a great job there, and he would have been 17 at the time. This was before we'd actually gotten any media attention. He was always great. And then from there, it's largely been people within within about 2 years of me. So I'm, again, 17, turning 18 this year. And look, obviously we can't continue to do child labour with 12-year-olds. I don't think that's a sustainable business practice. Also because they're now like banned under 16, so that kind of undercuts the model. And there's been a few who are over 18. Some have turned 18 while working with us, but it is always young journalists. We just say young journalists, majority high school, plus some in university. Experience, I mean, look, we just look at what they send us and we ask them to send a bit, and a lot of these guys have been doing it on YouTube as their own kind of passion project, not dissimilar to how I originally started it. And we're able to see that. We're like, great, come on board. And we're always, looking to try to expand the team. But what we've got right now is is also pretty solid. I mean, there's two people with us, for example, have been with us since I was 12 in like 2020, which is amazing that they're happy to keep working for a child boss this long, and I appreciate that. So it's evolving.
Boss baby,
at this point,
IRL.
Yeah, not that young, but I think we're almost forced hand to make the under 16s cut off at some point. But overall, we're wanting to continue to support young people and support young people's stories and support young people getting into journalism.
Can I ask, because we say you're one of the few good news outlets in Australia, like genuinely, yeah, good fucking journalism, which is hard to find. When you started, were you thinking, oh, Australian journalism needs a few better reporters? Or were you more just like watching what journalists did and going, I want to do that? And then maybe as you did more of it, you found ways that you could maybe do it even better than the adults in the space?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much it was just getting inspiration, obviously, from a number of outlets, but seeing other journalists do it and just watching it on TV. I think there might be video of me in like a high chair watching the ABC 7 p.m. bulletin, right? So we can go that far back if we need to. Although I don't know if we want that one out there. But look, it's seeing part of that. And look, there wasn't any initial thought that Australia's media savior needs to be this 12-year-old. But as it's kind of developed, I think we've seen people who are getting their news first, and the amount of comments that we see citing 6 News or thanking 6 News. A lot of people getting to the point where they can talk to each other referencing 6 News, and there's less and less questions about what's 6 News, which is always nice. We got to the point where we're showing up like first in the Google result over some random US TV station. And so as it's developed, I think, we're kind of filling that space, as digital media is more important, which is especially developed since 2020. So we've come in at a really good time there. But, it was never the original thought. And I didn't think it was going to be anything serious. And somehow 6 years later, I'm still doing it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't mean this disparagingly at all, but like there was an element in which, you clearly wanted to look like the people on TV doing news, right? You love the news, you love the idea of being a journalist, and you wanted to have a crack at that. But then, because you've been going for so long, built up this level of credibility, and as we say, are delivering serious news stories and having serious interviews, you must have a theory about what makes good news, or a critique, or you must recognize what people often hate about Australian mainstream media as it exists, and what they like about 6 News and what you're going for with 6 News. Could you talk a little bit about that, Leah?
Yeah, of course. And look, I think that, as much as there can be some criticism towards the media, and look, I'm conscious of the fact that if this 6 News thing doesn't work out, I don't want to disparage any future employees. But look, I think a lot. Yeah, well, look, I think a lot of media does do a good job, and obviously there's hyper-partisan criticism that is often just bullshit, right? You hear from the drips or you hear from one side or the other. I think the ABC cops a lot of unwarranted criticism amongst genuine criticism, of course. What I will say is that it's a lot that we do see with other countries. It's clickbait. It's the same kind of perspectives that's especially relevant in elections. I think a lot of people are wanting to hear more and more from non-major candidates, and I think that's reflected on both sides. I think a minor party debate as a start would be a great way. I know New Zealand does it, granted different systems, but I think those kind of things are important to build up in future. So it's and outside of elections, it is just not hearing from the same people. I think it's also just the fact that, a lot of media has been in the same style for decades and decades, right? And 6 News has evolved, right? We've changed formats, we've grown, we're able to break away from kind of like a traditional TV schedule as we had trialed for a few months. So there's part of that, but also various, individual incidents and bias accusations, some fair, some not, over the years have just developed into a point where just people are not listening. That combined with people seeing alternative sources on the internet. So it's really a combination of factors, but it just has built up to the point where people don't trust existing media. And so where we're able to come in is that we've always been on digital, right? We're not like other outlets that are having to adapt from TV or radio for digital. We are literally, we only know, iPad, TikTok, YouTube Instagram. You know, that's what we've been watching our whole lives, right? We've been able to build up on that, and it's a generation. We are, in the generation that has, seen this the entire time, and I think that adds a bit of authenticity to it.
Mm. You mentioned the 16-year-old social media ban, which I think is a really interesting one to tease out a little bit further, because I know something that you guys pride yourselves on is your impartiality. That's important to you as a news outlet. Would it be fair to say that in the face of that particular legislation and the issues that throw up around this idea of banning 16-year-olds and under from social media is something that you've been outspoken about? It obviously affects you as a media organization, but you also have a view on it. Is that one where you've kind of, thrown your hat into the ring a little bit, or been a bit more vocal about what you think about that particular policy direction?
Yeah, absolutely. It was nice to get off the self-imposed leash for some of this kind of stuff. And look, I think we were always clear, even 2020, 2021. We always said that we would be prepared to take a formal 6 News stance on something that has a very clear direct effect on us. So that could be things like press freedom cases. I've also, made thoughts clear on other things like, for example, like the High Court ruling that makes publishers responsible for defamatory comments and things like that, because that's something that directly affects us and we get constant comments about all the time. And so, look, this was something that obviously directly affected us. It directly affected how 6 News has been built up in the first place. And then on top of that, naturally you had journalists from all around the world asking the teen journalist his thoughts on it. And at some point you've got to speak about it. And so we did that, and I was lucky enough to actually get it at a parliamentary committee about it, which I don't know how I managed to get into that, but it works. And we managed to get to that, and we had a lot of parliamentarians, speaking about us, Teals, Libertarians, Nationals, and all that. And it was at a point where it was something that was so directly important to us, but also important to me personally, that we did have to kind of take a stance on there. And look, I was critical of it the first time I heard it. I still absolutely am, and every criticism that I made during the past year, I absolutely think stands. It's just a dumb idea in the end.
And I was trying to think, what's the latest on that? Because it wasn't election policy, right? This is legislation that was passed last year that then has a 12-month sort of delay on it in terms of its actual implementation. But is it my understanding that regardless of who wins the election, because there's bipartisan support for this, in September, October of this year, this actual ban is going to be imposed, and somehow Australians aged 16 years and under are not going to be able to access a whole bunch of specific social media sites.
In theory,
depending on if they figure out how the hell to do that. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I never believed the stuff about uniparty duopoly until I saw them both support this, really. Look, the idea was, I think it was passed late November. It was literally the last hour of the Senate sitting. They pushed it through. And so, theoretically it's going to come in there. I think the coalition, they wanted it instant. They said do it before the Christmas holidays to really ruin everyone's fun. Labor kind of pushed it back till November. If the coalition gets in, big if, is I think they're almost wanting it to be instantaneous. Labor, it seems, will still be going for that November date. So theoretically they're going to somehow ban a specific age group from social media, which also somehow doesn't take personal data that forces Face ID for Australians, but also it might do that. It's just so fucking dumb, and I'm sick of it. Right? It was 6 months of the worst possible discourse about this. And then, it all got the international attention, wow, great idea. This is clearly work. And look, we still don't know how it's going to be implemented. We never have, and we may never will.
No, because that's the point. The year was meant to be there. All right, we're going to do this thing. Just give us a year, because we're going to figure out how we're going to do it, but we will do it. Don't you worry. It will work, even though it hasn't worked in any other jurisdiction ever.
I think
we're
even
going to make it happen.
I think even that they've said at least a year. So look, for all we know, this is going to come in under Prime Minister Plibersek. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, really. I hope not, at least.
God. And so what would that mean for you, in theory, if it does get around? There was a carve-out for YouTube. And I'm sorry, I know we covered this all on the show. I just kind of forget it now. There was a carve-out for YouTube, but if this ban was introduced, for you, your journalists who are 16 years or under, you wouldn't be able to really bring them on board because they wouldn't be able to reasonably engage with all the platforms that you guys use?
Yeah, I mean, like we usually communicate over Twitter, for instance. I mean, look, I use social media DMs more than I use SMS or WhatsApp. Although, is WhatsApp included? I don't know. See, no one knows. Snapchat was, and then it wasn't. So yeah, YouTube was exempted. I know TikTok kind of almost had a bit of a hissy fit about this a few months ago, when then this is like, oh, this is akin to banning, soft drinks without banning Coca-Cola or something like that. It's like, no, don't encourage them, please. At least we got YouTube out, because I was pushing hard for that specifically, because I'm like, this is like, they use it for Google Classroom. Like, make life harder for teachers. Genuinely.
That's, as I understand it, that's all school is now. They just press play on YouTube.
Pretty much.
Seems to be what my my teacher friends do a lot of.
All right, everyone, time to listen to Leo. Click.
It works. I mean, I think I heard from the classroom next door to me the Sarah Hanson Young Salmon video or something like that. Was it Hanson? I don't know. All it was the salmon video. You know the one.
Anyway, it was.
Yeah. So. Yeah. The point being that would create a lot of hassle. Also, the fact that it's YouTube. Like, let a 15-year-old look at YouTube. Like, it's just so dumb. So we'll see how they kind of implement it. But again, it's just whether they're kind of able to. As for 6 News, as I said, as I kind of age up, it makes less and less sense, and it would kind of at some point it'd get a bit weird to continue to hire 13, 14, 15-year-olds. So somewhat less of a problem for us, but still, we want to be hearing from young people who are doing important things. We want young people to be able to explore their passions at the age of 13. Again, we're not talking about like 7-year-olds here. We're talking about teenagers, we're talking about high school students who are expected to act a lot more maturely, understandably. So I'm hoping we'll be fine. But look, at the same time, we could very well be lumped in with YouTube and every single person with the age ID for everyone.
Yeah, God. You did get to ask Anthony Albanese about this during your interview with him a couple of weeks ago. You sort of framed it in the context of 6 News. You said, hey, 3 years ago, we interviewed you here on 6 News. You said that 6 News was a great initiative. Here's a whole bunch of young people engaging with news and politics and doing that through social media, the natural language of their generation, the way that we engage with social media. What the fuck? Why would you then suddenly make this impossible? I mean, you didn't say this, but that was how I read. That was the subtext.
Lean forward.
Yeah, I mean,
what did you think of his response?
It was interesting, and he was, by all accounts, very, very, polite to us both when we spoke to him in 2022. As I was 14, colleague Roman McKinnon was 13, and then when he was speaking to us then. And so, look, I mean, it was basically the same lines we had heard before. I was also conscious, and you kind of noticed in the interview because it was budget night. We were very, very, very pressed for time, which I understand. So I didn't have enough room for too many follow-ups, because I very happily could have kind of argued about this for a while. So I found that interesting. Look, it was the same kind of language he'd used before. I still disagree with the framing that this is protecting parents when there are no parental exemptions, or I think the specific line is putting power back in the hands of parents. I mean, it's just not. So I disagree with that and would push back on that more. But he's fine with a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old speaking to him on a news channel. So that element's fine, but evidently not so much. 2022 Leo. That's all banned. We'll kind of hide that one.
God. Good on you. I did notice in a piece that was written about your profile about you, sort of based around these issues, there was this sort of interesting nugget. Research conducted in 2023 by the Australian Communications and Media Authority found 46% of young people aged 18 to 24 years nominate social media as their main source for news. Now, of course, we know that the category of social media is very wide, because it would cover, I guess, a random person on TikTok to an organisation like 6 News, which is actually getting into the details of serious news journalism a lot. I guess I'm just interested in what you think about that, how reflective that is of your experience and your peers, and whether you think that's good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. It's reflective from what I hear, and we've probably, look, I mean, amongst like my year level of year 12 students, it would probably be bumped up to at least 75%, if not more, who almost solely get it. And I think it can be good if they're following the right sources and if they're following 6 News. Naturally, of course, there's a lot of just lies out there that is spread. There's the natural misinformation. We could have a whole conversation about AI developing and the problems that's causing, even for younger generations who you would think would be less susceptible to that kind of stuff. I mean, it's gotten ridiculously good over the past 2 years. I remember when it was just the Dali, fake images of Will Smith with spaghetti, and now it's fucked over everyone's life, and no one can tell what images are real or not, which is great, right? Isn't that great? So I think it can be a good thing. I think naturally people understand this, and look, for all we know, a lot of those people watching it could be watching 9 News on TikTok, they could be watching Channel 7 on Instagram. But I think it provides problems, and I don't mind it. I think it could be a good thing. It is the way that it's going to go, and that number is just going to keep building up, right? So it is the way things are now. It is the way things will continue to develop, and that's why so many media outlets that were maybe hesitant to even use TikTok, for instance, a few years ago, have now jumped on board and are taking over that space. Except Sky News, which has banned itself from TikTok for some reason, but everyone else is fine with it.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Why? Because it's controlled by the CCP or some bullshit? Yeah, okay.
I swear I'm not making... No, they did because a year or two ago, they took themselves off it. I think it was around the time they were talking about banning it in the US, or maybe it was a while back. I don't remember, but I swear they did, because they had videos that were all these like opinionated videos, and I'm not saying that as a slight, but like that was kind of the whole headline around them. But now they're gone, or maybe my TikTok feed has just never ever showed them up. So who knows? But I think most media kind of recognise it. We've been on it since about 2020, and we get. I mean, look, every video is kind of random with the For You page algorithm, but we tend to get pretty good numbers.
Pretty good. I mean, so this is the interesting thing. Like, and we had this conversation on the show when we were talking about the social media ban, and you acknowledge that there's a lot of shit out there, and young people or anyone getting their news primarily from social media has to contend with the fact that, a lot of it may not be true, a lot of it's rubbish. That might be the ways that the algorithms have absolutely driven, complete tripe and rubbish into people's feeds is ignored when we just take the approach of, well, we'll just ban it for young people and that's somehow going to work. I'm curious to know your thoughts on like what would be more effective. Is it rolling out more things like community notes on Twitter or X, for example, if we're talking about fact checking and things like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, I think community notes I think it has been a net benefit, although flawed for several different reasons. And I know Facebook definitely hasn't been perfect with it because of some of their like automated stuff that is flagging stuff that is like obviously satire, and it's like, oh, this is an AI image, and it's like a shark head on a boot or something, and it's just like this obvious stuff. Anyway,
ballerina cappuccina.
Yeah, exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So that has its problems. I think in schools at a minimum, I think you've got to have better education about both online safety and extending that to like figuring out what's true or not, figuring out what are trusted sources. I remember year 6, and look, when I started primary school, this is kind of the era where the government was moving in like iPads into the state schools, right, and moving away from the old Microsoft PC. So you can kind of see how things were developing at that point. And, we get the occasional patronising seminar about, this is how dangerous it is. But I think it's a lot better to just talk about, and realise the fact that young people are going to be on social media. There's a chance they'll see some harmful shit. There's a chance they're going to see some stuff that would be really awful. Here's how to deal with it. Here's how to get around it. Not just, don't risk it. I'm telling you, it'll be terrible. You know, like you've got to acknowledge realities.
It's like
here.
sex, drugs, anything. It doesn't work by just telling young people to abstain from all the things that everyone else is doing, and that's how you'll stay safe. Like, you give them the information that they need to make, hopefully, slightly smarter decisions while their brains are growing.
Exactly. Yeah. Young people don't go buy this video game. Young people don't go sneak out to the movies. Don't you listen to that wireless? You know, it's been like this.
Literally,
like
stop
this
reading those damn comics. Don't read them.
Yeah, exactly. It's been constant. It's been constant. And it's just going to continue to develop. So I can't wait to see what's next in that line. But yeah, at the end of the day, you've got to realise the more you tell a teenager and a young person not to do something, the more they're going to do it. I mean, that's just how it works. And they're like, well, you see people comments like, well, they need better parenting. It's just like, it's not how that works. It's not how that works. And I don't think either of my parents who are, out there working all day want to make sure that when they get home, if my little brother, if he's on YouTube, if he has dared to touch TikTok, it's just so dumb. It is so dumb.
I just love that example with your family though, because it's like, Leo, are you breaking scoops in your room again?
No, Dad. Yeah,
are you doing admirable journalism in there, young man? Come out.
Yeah, you can't police this. You cannot police this.
Dad,
and that
just
was the point
one
I was
more fact
making.
check. I'm not going to stop. I love checking facts.
To be fair, that's how I sound like with teachers most of the time. Like, but the Pope died, miss. Come on,
this is a huge story. The Pope. But then interesting, because Albanese would cite like the mobile phone ban in high schools as an example of a perhaps heavy-handed or a widespread ban that has had positive impacts for people in the education settings. I don't know. Have you experienced? Is that ban being rolled out in your school? I know it's a bit state by state, Leo, but is that a reality of your schooling? And what do you make of that, of taking kids' phones away while they're supposed to be in class?
Yeah, so I'm in a Vic government school. I know a lot of people think I'm private school because I live in the city of Kooyong, but always been public school. So I'm glad we get that out there. It was implemented in 2020, so the first year I started high school. Again, it was not really implemented because 2020 and 2021 COVID, and so that was not applied. And look, you see phones being taken. Certain teachers may be more strict than others. A lot don't care. If you've got it in your pocket, just as long as you're not using it in class, which is fair. By the time it's year 12, I think everyone's pretty chill with each other. Look, in terms of effectiveness, I think it's flawed because VPNs exist and schools do everything on laptops now. And so it's just very kind of hard to police that. At the same time, I'm not going to put dramatic energy into fighting it. I think at the end of the day, that's something and obviously private schools can be different, but that's something that's in place for 6 hours at a school and as part of a school agreement, right? It's not banned in the privacy of your own home with the consent of your parents, which is just a complete difference. And I have to go back to the point that there is no parental exemption for this legislation, which is just insane. If a mum and dad wants to tell their 15-year-old they can have a TikTok account, I don't see why that needs to be stopped, right? We're talking about 15-year-olds who have support of their parents, right? I think if we want parents to be better informed, and maybe if you want parents to actually say, no, I think we'll wait another year, right? We'll make sure there's better education for parents and better resources for parents online so they can better understand different social media. I think that'd be really key as well.
Nice. All right, we want to talk to you about the election as well. We are, of course, in the middle of Oz Votes 2025. We're recording this a little bit ahead of time when people will hear it. The big polling day will be happening this week. I guess just generally, this is, I guess, your second federal election. I guess you've covered.
Third,
with 6 News.
Really second.
Third, technically, yeah. What are your impressions of the election in 2025? What's the general vibe, would you say, of this particular political contest, Leo?
Oh, look, and let's see how well these words from a week before airing age, because I'm never good with predictions and calls. But what I will say is, right now, I don't know what the coalition's doing here. I mean, the polls have just showed this constant decline. Labor, up in some polls, like up on their 2022 results, is insane when you think about what the situation was 6 months ago. Other than that, you have so many different contests with these crossbenchers and these non-incumbent independents and these non-incumbent Greens. and you think, well, naturally it's going to get Labor minority, and I still maintain that as my prediction. I've maintained it for maybe years now. But look, Labor is in the strongest position, and it's never good when people are starting to have the conversation about who the next Liberal leader will be. Like, aren't you trying to make this guy Prime Minister right now? And you've already got talk about, I think there's like 4 options, and 2 of them are in serious marginal seats anyway. And it's so weird how it's kind of fumbled, and it's just the moment the election campaign started. It's that Mr. Krabs meme. Wait a minute, I hate Peter Dutton actually, and it's like the Australian voters all of a sudden have kind of switched here. And look, I'm not sure 100% more what the coalition can do here, but from people I speak to in Liberals and Nationals, there's very obviously strong frustration about this and serious concern they could be losing more than they gain. We have to remember as well they needed like 25 for a majority going into this, and that was always going to be near impossible. Plus the fact there hasn't been a one-term government out of office since the Great Depression or something like that.
That's what I was saying. Like, if coalition loses but they gain seats, do you think Dutton would seriously be in trouble, or would the people be like, "Oh yeah, well, slowly but surely that the sort of the strategy is working and we'll get him next time"? I don't know.
Oh, I think they've got to be pretty close to the Labor seat count for him to survive. I look at like 2010 where it was evenly split, Labor and coalition. The numbers are a bit weird because of WA Nats, but let's say evenly split like 72, right? So obviously Tony Abbott could stay on there because he narrowly missed out. At the end of the day, it came down to negotiations. But if it ends up at 64 coalition, 75 Labor, I don't think that's viable. And then you look at some of the other numbers that Dutton's been getting personally. I mean, you saw Albanese in the latest news poll get above 50% two-party preferred, not two-party preferred PM. And it's like, well, do they really want to run this guy again in 3 years? I just don't, see that happening. I imagine there'd be more than a few, maybe not a majority because factions are a bit weird, but I imagine there'd be more than a few dissenting within a coalition room that could, see enough leadership trouble to stop Dutton 2028 happening.
Dutton 2028? Oh, dreams come true. Imagine it. I've been noticing at 6 News you've been doing these debates between Senate candidates. You mentioned minor party debates before. You've been doing these panels with Senator candidates for Victoria, for Queensland, and recently for New South Wales. Get this blunt rotation, Emerald. Okay, you got Miles Hunt from Legalised Cannabis, Craig Kelly, who's
literally blunt rotation.
Literally, he'd actually be the only good one. Craig Kelly, who's with the Libertarians. I didn't even know that Craig had jumped ship there, but there you go. Lyle Shelton, my good friend from Family First, and Warwick Stacey from One Nation. What an incredible meeting of minds, Leo. What did you learn? I could barely get through it, I'll be honest with you. No shade on you. It's just that these crazy motherfuckers and their hateful policies drove me crazy. What did you get out of that particular debate for the good Senate candidates of New South Wales?
Oh, well, look, I mean, look, my personal favourite was either Vic with Purple Pingers or Queensland with Rennick and Roberts going at each other. But for New South Wales, they hashed out some of their differences. I think
you're more like a Senate family councillor, just bringing them together. And
well, poor Miles Hunt was sitting there for like 20 minutes at a time while others argued. I can see him on my Zoom call, kind of sitting there a bit sadly, and I felt bad, and so we kept coming back to him. But it was mainly just them fighting, and I think every few lines it was one of Stacey, Shelton, or Kelly saying, we agree on the vast majority thing. Well, I don't know you, Miles. I don't know you, but we agree on the vast majority thing. Well, debate. But I enjoy it, and I enjoy doing it. We've done one for South Australia, and as of this recording, we're hopeful, or maybe watch them now if they're out, hopefully, for WA and Tasmania as well. But look, at the end of the day, the odds are any of the people in these debates could be a senator. So someone's got to speak to them beforehand.
So do you ask everyone, or are you not getting majors in there, or where are the Greens, I suppose, is my other question? Like, how are you choosing the folks who make up these panels?
Yeah, so we limit it to 4. That's like mainly because of technical reasons. I don't think our computers would like more than 4 candidates with the other people we have. So it was kind of a self-imposed limit. We chose not to invite the majors. It was always going to be either a bit stock standard with them or they just flat out refuse. It's very, very hard to get on major party candidates during an election season because of the amount of approval I had. I'm like, do we want to go through this with 6? And I was like, who cares? As for the Greens, they are at the point where in the vast majority of cases they're large enough to not be in contention for the 6th and final seat in the sense that they would win beforehand. So like in Victoria, in Tasmania, in other states, again, I would. I imagine you two as well probably suspect the Greens should get in one in each state this election, as happened before. And so that was a deliberate choice to get them out. So, we focused it on parties with a realistic chance, which One Nation has in the majority of states, which the Legalised Cannabis Party also has. The Libertarians have some outside chances, and there were also other kind of exemption moments. So like Gerard Rennick on his own would probably not be able to get in given One Nation's vote, but as an incumbent senator, we wanted to include him. And then also in South Australia, legalised cannabis candidate Diana Walters, she actually quit the party, and we're like, we'll include you anyway for her ungroup. And she actually withdrew from the election altogether with a health thing. So well, but no, the inclusion happened. Wish her the best, but yeah. So it's been fun. It's been fun, and look, at the end of the day, again, someone has to speak to them. I think. Look, critics of Ralph Babbitt, will say no one heard from him before the 2022 federal election, and he would have made it into our 2022 debates had we had them. So yeah, I guess it's important to listen to them and look.
To be clear, we are not critics of Ralph Babbitt on this podcast. We are massive fans. We love his work, and we think he's doing fantastic stuff. Yeah, he's doing really good stuff. So that's good. I mean, I don't know. Are these people crazy? I mean, they're candidates, they're running, but I don't know. I was watching some of it being like, these people are fucking crazy. I mean, they probably think that about us, hey, but they're loco, Leo, and credit to your professionalism, but you're just sort of saying, well, that's an interesting thought that you think that we should set trans people on fire. Okay, next question. What do we do?
I would never want to personally criticize a guest, but look, I think again, the reality is these people in the vast majority of people we've spoken to have serious chances of being a deciding Senate vote in a few months' time, right? And you're getting some of those positions on record now. You're getting him on, an outlet that has somewhat credibility versus some random podcast that, is dug up for a Guardian article in like 6 years' time about controversial comments resurface or something like that. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think people do want to hear from them. Maybe it's not a majority, but I think people do want to hear from them at some level. And people want to see some of them debate. I think, there are plenty of people who do not like Warren Pickering or Jordan Ditloff in Victoria, but they wanted to see purple pingers go at them. And we're the only one maybe stupid enough to provide that platform, and so they get on it. So we'll host most debates. We'll host most
Give
debates.
Give the people what they
for
want.
Better or worse.
Yeah. And helpful for ordering those final those final numbers on your ticket as well.
Yeah, but it's also crazy that no other platform does it. Like the ABC should be doing, again, full credit to 6 News for doing it, but the ABC should absolutely be doing that. And the fact that a lack of actual debates between candidates outside of the major parties across the media, the fact that it's not regulated or carried out by the AEC anyway, I think is also pretty crazy to me. So God bless you for doing the Lord's work, Leo. We appreciate it.
We try. Yeah. I mean, look, maybe the ABC shouldn't do it because we want to do it instead. But at the end of the day, I'd be very interested to see a minor party federal leaders debate in the future, and whether it's good viewing or not depends on your definition of the word good. But I would be very eager to host it one day. But we'll see.
Did you see much of that Emerald? Adam Bant's been out there, of course. Every election talks about the fact that it's bullshit that the Greens get left out. I saw someone commenting, oh, yeah, well, if the Greens got on there, then One Nation would get on there as well. as if that was some incredible gotcha, which we're a bit like, well, yeah, that would be part of it. And they can say what they think and they'll be exposed as the dum-dums that they are, right?
That's right. Yeah. Like a lot of the time, these absolutely insano micro parties get away with not voicing what they actually stand for. And it would be helpful for people to know what they do stand for. The Greens would love that chance. It is true that it's like it becomes a question of what's the cutoff. If you're going to include a bunch of other minor parties or independents or micro parties, how do we don't have endless time, but I suppose 6 News has been able to make it work somewhat logically. So surely our fucking national broadcaster can figure something out.
Naively, I thought they'd probably only go for like an hour, and each has gone for like an hour 30 minimum. And I think on every occasion we've gotten through like one question, and it's already half an hour in, and I'm like, guys, please hurry up. But I think look, we'll see what happens with criteria. I think national polling is one thing, lower house seats is another thing. Incumbent Senate representation again, but there's also the question of all these one-person parties. Like, do we need Tammy Terrell for Tasmania represented in the national debate? So it's tough. But and look, it wasn't easy for us to limit things to 4 either. But look, chuck every registered party on, and we'll do it on 6 News for all I care. We had like 12 for a Melbourne mayoral debate last year, and that was a total shit fight, but it worked out well, and that was in real life. So I think those kind of things work well. Over Zoom it gets even worse, and somehow I also love it. It's a bit of a sicko thing, but I do love it.
Absolute sicko.
What a sicko. All right, you've had Albanese on. At time of recording, we have no Dutton. Any word on whether Dutton's going to speak to 6 News, speak to the youth?
His team seems to be stonewalling us. I don't know what the hell we've done. Like we've asked maybe a dozen times minimum. Could have been 2 dozen. Our team in Queensland is trying. We've never had a response. Not even a no. We have never ever heard them. We've called, or we've texted, we've emailed, we've tried multiple people. No. So unless there's some kind of miracle here, I don't think we're going to get Peter Dutton on, which is really weird because Scott Morrison was happy to speak to us, and we're very happy to speak to Peter Dutton, and we are eager to speak. We spoke to Albanese. We're eager to speak to minor party leaders as well. Look, Swellen Wrights and Trumpeter Patriots has ghosted us, so that's a no. We're hopeful for Adam Bant. We're trying as I speak now to lock in a date for that desperately, but we are very hopeful there. And Pauline Hanson's team is optimistic there. But, Peter Dutton just does not want to speak to us, which I think is a shame. And our chief reporter, Roman McKinnon, he's in the seat of Dixon, right?
Yeah,
so I don't know whether he's got
Dixon,
a current affair style ambush him or something, but we'll try our very best.
Please do this. I think Peter is a listener. So Peter, if you're listening and you haven't yet, gone ahead with the interview, give it a crack. I'm sure you do great.
Give it a crack.
I'd love to have him on, and we've got so much to ask, and it's like, why not? But it seems, I don't know whether it's anecdotal, but apart from a few examples, he seems to be doing a lot less online and non-traditional media than Albanese has this campaign. I don't know whether it's a deliberate strategy or not, but we've just seen him a lot more in the kind of the traditional platforms, and whether that is going to have an impact, I'm not sure, but it just is an observation.
All right. Peter Dutton, go on 6 News. Abby Chatfield, go on Serious Danger. Leo Puglisi, come on Serious Danger. Oh, wait, you already have. And you very kindly spoke to us for our podcast. Thank you so much, man. It's been great to talk to you again. Regular on the show, we talk about how much we appreciate and enjoy your journalism and the work that you and all the team at 6 News are doing. So thank you so much. If people want to support your fantastic work, as you mentioned, you do have a Patreon, patreon.com/6newsau. That's the numeral 6 News AU if you want to chip in and support the great work that you folks are doing. And, of course, subscribe across all the various channels to get the latest, unbiased, unfiltered, impartial news from children, putting the mainstream media to shame. That's the way to do it. Thank you very much for talking to us, Leo. We appreciate it, man.
Anytime. Thanks so much.
Journalisi Puglisi.
Serious Danger Australia.